right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now is where we awaken to the oneness and wholeness that we come from, the truth of being. We do it always in the present moment, right where I am, wherever I am, God is. It's beautiful, isn't it? Great, great, magnificent teaching. We're working and looking at our life in relationship with others in a book called One Soul, One Love, One Heart. We have a few left. And it's a wonderful story of the sacred path to healing that all relationships provide. And our teacher, John, tells us in his particular version of teaching, he's Hindu in his background, that the one presence and the one power in his tradition is called Brahma. Brahma, one presence, one power. God is Brahma. And that particular connection to that Brahman nature, that Brahma within each of us, is called Atman. And everyone has Atman within them. Everyone has that spark of divinity inside their own being. Some traditions call it Christ consciousness, some call it Buddha nature. But it is that Atman, when we awaken it, that allows us to feel our connection to Brahma, to the one presence and the one power. And so when we pray and we meditate, we do our inner work to connect to that inner Atman. And then when we work through our relationships with others, through loving kindness, compassion, and forgiveness, we help awaken that Atman within others and have it become alive in us. And what we give to somebody else is first received by us. So when we look out and see people, what we're looking at and experiencing is Atman in disguise, pretending to be something other than what it is. We are all spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual law. And that essential essence is in everyone at all times. What happens to us here is we fall asleep to that. We pile so much on top of that Atman, we forget its radiance. And we become lost in being separate, isolated beings, alone, feeling a sense of aloneness rather than all oneness, which is our birthright. I said on Sunday that it's like being in this deep pool, ocean of energy. And when you look up and you see on top, what you see floating are us splashing around in the appearances all around us. And we put so much energy and attention on living only at the surface of life, we forget what supports us and brings us buoyancy right beneath us. We become skin-encapsulated beings of forgetfulness while we're here. That's why we need teachings to awaken. My dad loved boats, and his boats, I've told you this before, were called Reality, R-I-A-L-I-T-Y. And those boats were my dad's reality. He loved being on the boat. His income got bigger, the boats got bigger, and more stuff on this boat than you could imagine. It was a luxury 46-liner of his particular consciousness that allowed him for a few moments, every few moments, in one day, and only a few moments, to relax. He was only able to relax for a few moments every day. And we'd sit, and just for a few moments, there would be a break in the relentless going somewhere and speeding down and starting up the 300 Cummins diesels and going to the next port and doing the next thing and putting the next little gadget or thing on the boat. And that's you and me. We're floating in these isolated, skin-encapsulated realities that we've created, and we forgot we are the ones who created that in the first place. Atman, essential nature, Christ consciousness is what we are. In our world, we should feel connected because we all have this spark of divinity within us. And yet look at the world we live in. There's 7 billion people on this planet. And yet everybody feels alone, separate, and isolated, and apart from other people. Have you noticed that? Everyone's cry is for community and connection and to feel part of something. And yet somehow, because we spend so much time identifying with our separate selves, the reality that we're floating in, we've forgotten how connected we are to other people. And the very thing we want most from others gets glued and attached to being able to somehow acquire it through outer means, when there'll never be enough things to acquire to make the boat of our lives feel like they're ever enough, until we realize we are enough and get glimpses of Brahma pouring forth blessing through each Atman, through each consciousness, through each heart, through each pair of eyes. I love to go to the airport and spend time practicing being mindful, because people get off planes and then they have hours before they get on the next plane, unless you got a late connection. Most of the time you have a lot of time. And so I do what I do, I try to do anyway best, be mindful and present. So I find a place to either sit, and I love the rocking chairs at the southern airports. Don't you love them? Nobody ever just sits in them anymore, though. We used to have those chairs to relax, remember? To settle in and just be present. You watch people now, and they're rocking back and forth, and they've got their iPhones and their iPads, and they've got their iTunes, and they're on screens, and everybody's back and forth, faster and faster. That's us. So I try to, by being mindful, practice being more like Thich Nhat Hanh, and just walk slowly and watch people. And I watch us, and we've got our baggage, and we've got our stuff, and we're all connected to this kind of false identification with the technology that now is ruling us rather than our using those technological devices. They've really just separated us from each other. Everybody runs around being with anybody but the person that they're with. Looking at anything but the person who's sitting next to you. Hello, here I am. Hello, are you there? No, no one's there. I am so busy now. I am like Barack Obama. I'm on 24/7. I have got things to do and people to see. I've got 500 friends who I've never met. Who could care less about me? Now, this is not a curse. This could be a blessing, but how we're using it is to stay separate, to stay isolated, to stay in our little own reality, not seeing the glorious wholeness that's all around us. And it gets here by you showing up here. It gets here by our being present for what's all around us right here, right now, right where I am. I pray God is. Be still and know that presence. He says it's likened unto what's happened to us in our identification with outer things as we become culturally intoxicated. And now cultural intoxication is not just about drugs and alcohol, which we all know well, personal friends of mine, yeah, over the years, drugs and alcohol. But through devices, through thinking I need something to complete myself, by being very busy all the time, rushing here and rushing there, constantly looking for what's not in front of me, but for what might be there when I get there, and then when I get there, I'm not there, so neither is the presence either, because I'm not aware of it. This cultural intoxication with keeping ourselves very busy all the time keeps us from really connecting and being present for the presence that's all around us, inside of us. This will take a constant vigilance to see what this is. Take a look at what that is in my life and be willing to shut those things down for a time and just practice being mindful and present while you're sitting at a traffic light waiting at that corner with that light that takes so long. Oh my Lord, rather than plugging into something, look at the person next to you. Hello, here I am, Lord, where are you? Here we are, we're stuck here again. Let's make the most of being in line at Costco. Let's make the most of being stuck where we're stuck. And no, it's never going to be when we get there if we're not practicing being here now and being present right where I am, I pray. That's the Atman. And whenever Atman is aware of itself and present in you, you're more likely to see it in others. And then Brahma blesses you with the present moment so you don't miss it. So you don't let the whole thing go by and say, I missed the whole party. Where was I? I was somewhere other than where I am, right here, right now. What's happened to us is we have become so engrossed in identifying our happiness with what's going on outside of us. We don't realize that if we have any moment of happiness, it's because of the joy and the love and the peace already present inside of us. The circumstances may help us feel that for a few moments, but the joy and the peace and the love and the presence is always there. It's just waiting to reveal itself to us. Most of us identify those happy moments when we get them with conditions that are going on around us. And that's the beach.
having perfect swim in perfect water. It's now 79 degrees. Have you been in the ocean? That's as good as it gets. It's nice and calm today, so I like calm. And she's in a good mood today, finally. I've been waiting for him to finally get out of that grouch he's been in. And here we are, and I'm drinking this drink, and I'm wearing this outfit, and I'm going to recreate this feeling everywhere I go by doing outer things to make me feel inwardly connected to what's always there, irregardless of what's going on externally. When you're connected to the teaching, you can say to yourself, I am feeling so much peace and joy and bliss now. Right here, right now. It's not because of what's going on externally, but for what I'm connected to internally. Take that particular experience of what's going on externally and connect with it internally, and know in that moment you're uncovering and unfolding the inner Atman in yourself, and then passing it on to others. When you're connected in this way, everything changes. And it will take practice for us to do that. He likens unto what's happened to all of us now in this world that we live in, to a frog being placed in boiling water. What happens when you put a frog in boiling water? Jumps right out. Knows right away something's wrong. Gets out really quick. Whoa, that was hot. But if you take the same frog and you put it in cold water and turn up the heat real slowly, it boils to death and don't even know it. He likens unto us our culture that we live in now, particularly over the last 30 to 50 years. We have not been aware of the heat that's being turned up, and we are boiling ourselves to death. We're not being aware of things that should have had us jump out of the pot and went, oh, look at that, let's do something different. It's just happened slowly over time. The heat has been slowly turned up. Do you remember 25 years ago when Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, I miss Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, I want them back. This is Walter Cronkite, and you can look at me and I'll give you some information worthy of you listening to. It appears as if, my friends, we have a situation here. The water that we're drinking is being poisoned by the chemicals and pesticides we're putting on the land. It's seeping into our water, it's seeping into our oceans. We need to do something. And for a moment, we seem to jump out and see it. Oh, you're right, let's do something different. But what did we do? We're so creative, we developed a bottled water industry. I have bottled water. We got little pure filters, and now everybody's water's filtered, and we make a buck out of it. But do we solve the problem? No. Again, the heat gets turned up. Do you remember when a number of years ago we got the first hit that was a hole in the ozone? Do you remember that one? It was like, there is a hole in the ozone. Whoa, the frog jumped out and said, who's doing that? Oh, it's us and the way we're living. Let's do something different here. That's a great wake-up call. What did we do? The sun is now my enemy. Did we do that? Well, we have a little bit of that. And it's, it's going on, but mostly what we do is get stronger sunscreens. There's 15, and now there's 30, and 50, and now 100. You literally can put on a sunscreen now and be sent in a rocket ship to the 3 miles away from the sun. You will not get a sunburn, guaranteed. That's what ego does. See, it gets turned up and we don't know it. There are 1,000 species on our planet that are dying every day as we speak. That should have us jumping out and going, well, if they're going to be doing that, I guess we're going to be next. Did we do anything about it? No, they're all pesky little creatures. We don't like them anyway. And who needs frogs and bees? We do. See, this is what's happened to us. We have gotten used to way too much. The cultural mediocrity of what we're settling for now is ridiculous, and we need to be aware of that in ourselves when we do that with ourselves, just to be aware of it. Our particular teachings offer us an alternative approach to just continually turning up the heat, boiling to death. They give us an opportunity to stop the madness now, and it has to stop within us. Our willingness to connect to what really is all around us, to feel the divine presence in us, and to see it shining through the eyes of other people, to take a moment in our busy day to stop running and stop rushing and just be present, to experience the relationship with the beloved, the divine that we're having right now. And every time we do that, we discover inner resources within us that we didn't know we have. Great things begin to happen with us. The title for today's talk is called Pearl Man, and it comes from a story about a man named Pearl Fryer. An amazing man. Have you seen the video about Paul Fryer? Anybody seen it? He's this man who lives in Bishopville, South Carolina. He's lived there his whole life. He's now about 70 years old, only had a 3rd grade education. This is an Atman Buddha right now we're talking about now. And he's there, he's living in this town. He's living in this town that used to base itself on agricultural industry, which is falling apart. The town is basically closing up. And he's there, living there, and he believes in himself. He's worked for 36 years in a canning factory where they put Coca-Cola and all kinds of drinks in. That place is left as well, too, and gone off somewhere else where labor can be done more cheaply. And so he is this man who's got this deep belief in the Atman, in the spiritual presence within us that's greater than any appearance you could possibly see in the world. And he decides to change and shift the cultural mediocrity from what it has been, the story of prejudice, the story of only a select few with education getting what they want, and coming up and finding a deep place within him, in his relationship with himself, to bring forth a miracle that's happening all around him. And it all began with a very small idea. I want to live in that neighborhood where they tell me I can't live. And I'm going to have a yard that's going to win a prize. He had absolutely no understanding of anything to do with gardens or horticultural stuff at all. And he went to this particular nursery and he said, those plants that you're throwing out in the garbage heap, I want to get a couple of them. Would you mind giving them to me? I want to plant them in my yard. He's going, why do you want to do that? Because I want to have this great garden that becomes a gift to my neighborhood. Do you have any idea how to work with these plants? He said no. So literally, with a 3-minute lesson, you get a little scared when you saw this, didn't you? You kind of thought that maybe I'd be, doing a little chainsaw massacre kind of thing, because people who are like me, the line is very thin between all work cutting into pieces, look out for me in your neighborhood, And so he got this very quick lesson. He said, come here, Pearl, come over here. Let me show you how to do this plant. He said, yeah, that feels right. He went home and began to plant his garden. He spent 2 years believing in his ability to do whatever it is that he'd want to do. He'd work really hard. He got used to working 6 hours a day, 12 hours a day, no problem for him. And he believed that with God, all things were possible. Very spiritual man, went to church, but his spirituality was not about being a Baptist or being a unity person or being a Buddhist or a Hindu. It was about the love and the peace and the goodwill that's present in all beings as the Atman. And when you believe in that, you can do anything. And he literally won that award after 2 years of working with his garden. But that wasn't the end of it, you see, because when you do these practices and go deeper into the well of your being and discover and cover something inside of you, you then can share it with others. Literally, he has created in Bishopville, South Carolina, a major industry around himself. He's transformed the whole town into a beautiful arena for what's called sculpturing topiary. I can't even say it. And his particular consciousness and what he's done in his garden and in gardens all around Bishopville, South Carolina, attracts thousands of people to that area. Every month, people come and flock from all over the world to see the work and the beauty and the sculpturing that he has done by believing in himself. By connecting to that inner Atman in himself. He has built a Garden of Eden in Bishopville, South Carolina, and he's still the same humble, simple, beautiful, Buddha-filled man who just loves to have people come, walk through his garden, and be connected to their own possibility for creating that kind of miracle in their own life. And as part of that story, of a man named Pearl, the Netflix that we watch, you'll want to watch that. They show his wife. And his wife is this beautiful woman who he's been in love with for, what? 30 years, 50 years, 60 years. Let's say he's 70 years old now. And just completely in love with her. And she's sitting there and she's talking about this man named Pearl and how much she loves him. And she said, when he first started doing this 1,000,000 years ago, I thought he was absolutely crazy. But I knew he loved doing it, so I supported him in doing what he loves to do. And when you support others in doing what they love to do and you give them the freedom to do that, their life changes. She gave him the freedom to continue to do what he loves to do. And that allowed him to be more of what she needed for what she needs to do in her own life. He says it this way in this chapter on page 39. Recognizing that the other person, whoever it is, has their own point of view and their own experiences is itself tremendously healing. Other points of view aren't wrong just because they differ from ours. They may very well be based upon experiences quite different from our own. Usually when we meet someone for the first time, the thing that attracts you to him, you to her, are the very things that we think we need to fulfill ourselves, we want to learn more about. What we mostly do is we try to make that person in our own image and likeness become more like us and less like they are, and then we get bored with them, and then we got to find somebody else to start the whole cycle all over with again. When a couple, anyone now, two people, whoever it might be, when a couple can start to see what the world looks like through their partner's eyes, and to feel what it's like in their partner's emotional being, true healing and true relationship occurs. You don't need to take anything away from anybody's individuality to help us awaken to the one reality that we come from. And when I thought about that line, I thought about Maureen and I. On Monday, we're celebrating we've been together 40 plus years. We're having our anniversary on Monday. And I thought about this person who I've been with for all these years and giving you little keys to what's worked for us in our own personal relationship. We've always allowed each other the freedom to go about our own individual paths for learning and awakening. And honored that in the other person. And this has kept us both on the ultimate path together. So when we first got together, we ended up going off to New York for me to try my family business for a time. That didn't work out very quickly. Both got that wasn't it. And then we both decided to go to the farm in Tennessee and be hippies for a while and do that for a bit. And then I got the calling, I want to be a Unity minister. And so Maureen came to me to Unity Village, and for 2.5 years she supported me there, working in a bar from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 3 o'clock at night, coming home stinking of cigarette smoke. And when we left there, we got to Port Angeles, Washington, in the Northwest. And she goes, you know what, it's been real fun being with you. I want to be a midwife. And I said, I told you, support you in doing that. And while we had 3 children to raise in a ministry, a brand new one that I was unsure of, I said, you go. And she went off to Seattle, 75 miles away. And for 2.5 years, she practiced being a midwife. We've always given each other permission to stay on our own individual paths. That's such an important thing to do, because when you give someone freedom to be who they are, they'll want to be with you even more. When you try to make them in your own image and likeness, you'll both get bored with each other and want to go somewhere else. So the miracle of the pearl of great price that was connected in this man called Pearl was that his partnership with his other beloved allowed him to develop that part of himself so he could shine bright. And then you bring the pearl of that great price, that wisdom, into your relationship with others, and you become a bright star for the rest of the world to awaken in the presence of your healed relationship, your loving relationship, your growing relationship with another human being with flesh on. I remember the first time I really got a sense of that. In our work, and you know this very well, Marie, when you're the spouse of a minister, you know, here we are, all these years we're in ministry together, and it's like, oh, Richard. Oh, Richard's amazing, isn't he? Hi, Maureen. Where's Richard? Richard's so amazing. Nice to see you, Maureen. Oh, Richard, he must be amazing. What's it like to live with him? Oh, I can't imagine what it's like. And Maureen's rolling her eyes like this. She was a midwife. And in her work as a midwife, all as encompassing as what I'm doing for 20 years, I would go to her circle of power and authority where she was shining on and building a beautiful garden for God. And I would go and I would be the spouse. And they'd go, oh, hello, Richard, where's Maureen? I want to talk to Maureen. Maureen's the one. She's got the juice. She's got the energy. And it was so wonderful to see that playing out in our relationship together. It took nothing away from anything, but allowed us to deepen our love and our compassion and our passion for when we were together. And one particular time I went to a place called the Kalihi Palama Health Center in downtown Honolulu, where Maureen was a midwife with a handful of other women. And they were celebrating a year's worth of births that happened that year that Maureen had been a part of helping give birth to. And when I walked into that room and saw those families, the mother, the father, the child who'd been born, looking at Maureen and loving her and adoring her for her hours of staying with them for a 16, 20, 30-hour birth, how much they admired her. My level of love and appreciation for her quadrupled because they were seeing in her what I'd always seen and knew was true in her. And now when we come together, and we're working together now, that's the gift we bring to this moment. And it becomes a garden, a paradise that others can come in and awaken as well. He says it this way: we are all one, yes, but the place where we are one is in our big self, our Atman, our Christ nature. It's a triangular connection now. A spiritually alive relationship has 3 points of connection: our eternal connection to the one, and our human connection has 2. From the vantage point of the one, we connect with our 2 selves. Healthy, loving, spiritually whole relationships occur when we recognize that place of oneness and enjoy dancing in our 2-ness. And it becomes like this blessing when I see you 2 here loving each other. You 2 are so alike and so incredibly different. What a pair you 2 are. You know, and it's the very thing that has you being different that makes you so loving and the same with each other. It's like there's this oneness that hangs over the top of your crown chakra, and it expresses through the complete maniac that you are. So that everybody is crazy and outrageous. Is this woman this? When I met her, I went, who is this nutcase? And then here's this other person who's so stable and powerful and present, and yet the 2 of them together are so much more powerful than they could ever be apart, because they've given each other the freedom to be who they are as individuals. And this has kept them both on that ultimate path together. That's the gift of a spiritually alive relationships. And it happens every time we open our hearts to the Atman, to the truth of who we are. Let's just for a moment watch the story, a 3-minute video on this incredible man named Pearl. Please lower all the lights. And the ones up here too, please, in the ceiling.
Once I bought this piece of property of the house, I kind of got in the garden. And I figured then that was a way to show my creative being and really get to the point where I really can express myself.
Make it louder.
And so I got into the garden, and I knew what I hit. So I went to this nursery to buy a plant that was cut into 2 tiers. He found out that I knew nothing about gardening, and he said, I really don't want to sell it to you. He said, because people buy these plants and they think they grow like that. He said, but I'll show you how to do it. And he took me out and gave me a 3-minute lesson how to cut 2 balls and 2 pom-poms. And I came home, and it took me 2 years to kind of develop my own style and technique from that. And today, when I look at it, my former training would be a 2-minute lesson from a nursery because they wouldn't sell any plants. And today, I've become known for the lack of knowledge. And because if I'd had a horticulture background, I would have never done this because I was breaking too many rules, so I didn't know that I was breaking the rules. And so when people finally made me aware that this shouldn't happen, you shouldn't do this, then I realized for one time in my life, ignorance paid off. If you ever visit this garden, there's a message you're going to get you will never forget. I don't have to see you one time. My garden is just as big a ministry as any church in the state of South Carolina. I don't have a building. I have a congregation, I would say, every week of somewhere between 300 to 500 people. My garden is set up so that when you walk through the garden, you don't walk so long before you're going to see love, or I love you, I hate her. The last thing that you see when you leave my garden, because the idea is to leave this garden with a message, to feel differently than you did when you started The last thing you see before you get on the bus to leave is love, peace, and goodwill. Never by design. Now, you're going to leave this garden with that thought in mind. My main goal in life now is, for the rest of my life, is to make you draw from your strength. If you walk out today and you can make a difference in any person's life, you're going to feel good about yourself.
Michelangelo was asked how he ever produced a David. He said it was really quite easy. I just trimmed away everything that wasn't David. Yeah, and there was Atman. There was David. You get rid of all the barriers and the obstacles to the awareness of what you are. You don't become less the body, but you become more of who you truly are. And when you do this trimming work, what you're doing here in this room, you're coming here because you know you're already beautiful and whole, but you've gone asleep. And so you need to be trimmed down, yeah? Back to your original essence as a mighty, powerful, incredibly beautiful, Buddha-filled child of God. So when you walk out this door, you're filled with Brahman because you're down to your essential Atman. And my friends, you'll always need to come back for more pruning. Because you'll find yourself getting out on a limb, you know, and forgetting who you are, and not looking like that beautiful being that you are. So we come back to our practices, we come back to our meditation, we come back to our lessons, and we keep doing the work of trimming the garden of our own soul. And when we do, we produce an environment that when others come into that garden, they feel the sense of their own potential as well. And that's what we're here for. To produce a return to the Garden of Eden, where we are one and awake to who we truly, fully are. And this church and this particular teaching and all the people who are involved with it are dedicated to helping us do just that. So when others come in, they leave with a little bit more peace, a little bit more love, and a little bit more goodwill shining forth from their souls. For your willingness to do this work, we are grateful, and the world says, thank you and bless you. Now go and play in the Garden of Eden. It's here for all of us. Namaste.